Good evening. Okay, okay. Good evening. Oh, that was better. Okay, this is interactive, everybody. You need to wake up a little bit. I understand we're done with work. We're finished. We actually just ate a beautiful meal, so I get that, but we got to wake up. Okay, absolutely. My name is Joe Akam Bora. I am the director of grant administration here at Olive Harvey College. And how many of you guys enjoyed the Rivian trucks back there? Okay, okay, absolutely. What about this plane? This is a beautiful sight to see, right? Yes, yes. And a lot of you guys are in class and everything, and with the CDL, you guys enjoying the CDL classes and everything? Okay, okay. I promise you, there's so much more we could name. Actually, a laundry list of other programs, opportunities, and courses that we can name here at Olive Harvey that would not exist without this person. You know who it is. I need for everybody that knows who it is when I say her name to make some noise. I mean, make some real, I owe something to this person. I'm changing my life because of this person. They've offered opportunities to me that I didn't see in the past because of this person. She is an arbiter, an innovator, an originator. Please make some noise for Dean Cheryl Freeman Smith.
Now, with that kind of introduction, I should be doing some magic spells or something up here, right? But I am so glad to see all of you here today. This is an amazing day, an amazing event. I want to thank a few people before we kick things off. Jerry Quant, helping us be a think partner. Thank you, Jerry, back there in the corner. Of course, Joaquin Bora. I mean, we've been working on that introduction all of 2 minutes, but but he did a great job, right? Um, but also Kylie Koslick. She has been wonderful to work with, helping us start our first Smart Logistics event. We're very excited to be here today. But I'm going to turn things over to Joaquin. And again, thank you for being here and welcome.
Make a little bit more noise for Dean Cheryl Freeman Smith one more time. There we go. There we go. We got to get that decibel raised a little bit. Right here in the corner, by the way, it's just a little bit of some housekeeping. We have a QR code. If somebody has not signed in, I'm going to need you before you leave. If you want to do it now, that'll be great. Go ahead and sign in using that QR code that Ms. Director Davis is walking around with. We need everybody to sign in. It's just so important for tracking purposes. So thank you. Thank you so much for coming to our event. I'm going to sit up here a little bit. Thank you so much for coming to this event this evening. This is the future of supply chain in our backyard. We have some local companies and some local agencies that are here just really ready to give some wonderful, wonderful information, as well as to hear from you as well, and some of your thoughts and ideas as well. So this is going to be an interactive panel, an interactive discussion. We do want to give a shout out to C2S2, the Chicago Council of Science and Technology, for partnering with Olive Harvey, and also the Advanced Smart Engine, which is out of Governor State. I know we got a lot of Governor State folks in the house, so we appreciate you guys. You guys as well. Yes, absolutely, right in the front row. We appreciate you for coming. Okay, so first and foremost, yes, my name is Joe Akambora. I am just a kind of facilitator here at Olive Harvey, and I want to introduce our awesome panelists that we have. First and foremost, right in the middle, our beautiful Alicia Sims. Give it up. Yes, you can clap every time. Alicia Sims is a seasoned logistics and customer integration leader at PepsiCo. As a senior manager of customer integration, she specializes in streamlining supply chain operations and enhancing customer collaboration. With expertise in reverse logistics and business unit integration, Alicia plays a key role in optimizing efficiency and driving strategic initiatives while leading a global team not only in the U.S. but in Mexico as well. Next, we have Ryan Walsh. Raise your hand, Ryan. He also has his massive drones that he's going to be talking to us about as well. Ryan Walsh is the Chief Executive Officer and founder of Valkyrie, a pioneering company providing patented and universal drone delivery infrastructure. With over a decade of experience in technological innovation, he also serves as the North American Chapter Director for Drone Logistics Ecosystem and a strategic advisor at Haven Shine Technologies. All right, next we have Derek McDonald. I believe we're the same size. He said I can borrow his suit afterwards. I was very excited about that. Derek McDonald is an experienced transportation and logistics professional, currently serving as the general manager of Lilly Transportation, which is right around the corner actually as well. So that's part of our backyard. With a strong background in fleet management and operational leadership, he previously held roles as an operations manager and regional manager in the transportation industry. And last but not least, we have Calvin Washington. Calvin Washington is the material and logistics manager for Ford Motor Company. No, he is not selling cars at this time, so don't ask, okay? No, he said no. Overseeing supply chain operations and inventory management to ensure seamless production. With a strong background in logistics and materials planning, he specializes in optimizing efficiency and reducing operational costs. Okay, and last but not least, we're going to also talk about our moderator, who is the Associate Director of Programs for C2S2, which again is the Chicago Council of Science and Technology. They also have a table right outside in our kind of our resource area, so if you want to take a look and see what they're about, please do. Kylie Koslick is the Associate Director of Programs and Internships at C2S2. Kylie has an extensive background in science and communication and education, and at C2S2, she develops free science programs on all kinds of different science topics. So Kylie, if I could have you, oh, she's behind me. All right. Thank you so much, and let's get this panel started.
Perfect. Welcome, everybody. So, one quick thing before we jump in, let me stop the PowerPoint from rotating so it can be on the question slide for you all. So throughout the event tonight, we're going to have a dedicated Q&A section at the end of the discussion. But if you have questions that come to mind during, you can submit them using menti.com. I'll be checking it periodically, so I might even include some of your questions during the discussion as well. So if you submit them through there, then I'll get them up here too. Also, if you are joining us online, if you're joining us streaming, definitely submit your questions through the Menti. That way we can include your questions in the Q&A at the end. So with that, we've got our awesome panelists here. And I was hoping that we could start off kind of just going down the line, or if someone wants to jump in and go first, you can. A little bit, tell us like where your role and your current experience sits kind of in the general picture of supply chain and logistics. Kind of, you know, if you were to describe how you fit in to the big picture for all of us here, just to get us a good baseline to get started. And then, yeah, just grab the mic. There's two of them there, so you can either pull it towards you or take it off the...
Hello?
Yeah.
Good. All right, my name's Derek McDonald. I am the general manager of Lilly Transportation, operating literally a mile and a half away on 111th. We service Whole Foods distribution center to stores. We have 96 locations that we service. I employ 85 drivers and 10 dispatchers, doing about 120,000 miles a week. We are quite the operation out of there, and that's the reason I couldn't bring a truck here today, is because they're all in use.
Good evening. I'm Calvin Washington. I'm the material manager at Ford Motor Company, which is about 12 miles away. Here's really the only urban manufacturing facility in North America at Ford. We build about 250,000 cars a year, Explorer and the Lincoln Aviator. I manage around 5,000 parts that come in. We have about 500 employees hourly and about 31 salary employees. And pretty much I'm responsible for all the parts that come in, the delivery of the parts inside the building, and then when the car is shipped out, responsible for getting it to the dealership. So that's my piece in the logistic chain.
All right, good evening. I am Alicia Sims, Senior Manager of Customer Integration at PepsiCo, based out of our Chicago office. So I am responsible for the customer experience via warehouse deliver. So if you go to your local Jewels, your Walmart, your Walgreens, and if you see anything Quaker Oats, like Aunt Jemima, which is now Pearl and Millet Company, if you see Quaker Oats, if you see our wonderful grits, Sabra Hummus, Gatorade, Tropicana, I could keep naming all of the brands that we support. However, the team that I lead is responsible for making sure those products is on the shelf at the right time in the right place.
Hi, I'm excuse me, Ryan Walsh. I'm the CEO and founder of Valkyrie. We build fully autonomous point-to-point drone delivery systems. So think for healthcare supply chain, healthcare logistics, looking to get into just-in-time and reverse logistics for industrial warehousing and different mining resource type operations. So we're finding that with drones in particular, similar to how we saw with computers, the smaller they get and more individualized they get, the more useful and different use cases we can apply them to. And so over the last 10 years, we've been developing our technology for different use cases and different applications that we can apply our drone technology to.
Awesome. And just to help with the sound, if you bring it a little bit closer to you or speak up a little bit louder, that would be awesome. So for our next question, we know that Chicago is kind of a hub for supply chain, a hub for logistics. Are there any, Buddy want to make a comment or a thought about how Chicago is so uniquely suited to have all these different elements of supply chain in it? Yeah.
I can definitely jump in there. I originally came from the Northeast, so all freight from the Northeast traveled in one direction, south. Looking at a map, Chicago has none of those issues. You can go just about every direction from Chicago, hence why it inherently made such a transportation logistics hub. Right down the street, 8094, that stretch of highway is the busiest highway in terms for trucking traffic in the country, and it's not even close. So that's what I got on Chicago.
Yeah, pretty much the same thing. I mean, our supply base is about 5 to 6 hours, almost 70% of our supply chain, which makes it very easy to quickly react to different changes that we might have. The rest of the base, primarily in some of in the South, a lot of Mexico, very little from come across the ocean in terms of just a few parts. So the location makes it ideal for transportation. We're not using a lot of rail. Most of the stuff is over the road and pig. So that's probably the benefit of being in Chicago. It's a perfect place for logistics in terms of getting in and out the city quickly.
Down the line with the questions. So the reason why Chicago is important, so I'm more of a corporate setting. So Chicago is a diverse city with diverse talent, and I think that's why Chicago is a perfect place for one of our corporate headquarters. We also have a headquarter in New York as well as Plano, Texas. And I think the talent that we bring help to make a difference for our transportation teams, for our logistics team from coast to coast.
So one of the reasons we chose Chicago was the seasonality of it, right? Many of the drone companies set up shop in Florida, Texas, California because they wanted to have year-round perfect weather, but that doesn't necessarily teach you anything. And so we realized having all 4 seasons in Chicago was more of a blessing than anything. But also having 2 international airports, a naval base, one of the largest inland ports in the world, river system, the extensive rail systems that we have, it gives us a unique opportunity to test in areas and opportunities that we wouldn't normally get in any other city. And so we found Chicago is very uniquely situated for a very broad range within this drone industry.
Awesome. Thank you all for sharing. So our next question, I want to kind of jump into how is technology currently kind of impacting your job, your role, the work you're doing? You know, are there any new challenges that are arising as these new technologies and new drivers are in place? And you can focus on just one if you want, right? If you're like, oh, I have a good story, or go general, whatever works for you.
I think where technology is making its biggest impact in my industry right now is in the safety field. So we want all of our drivers making it home safe every night. We want everybody around them making it home safe at night. So recently we installed, cameras. What our cameras do in the trucks is giving us a point of view of what our drivers are looking at 24/7. That in the event of harsh braking, harsh turning, getting cut off on the Dan Ryan. We do get a little snippet of a video in live time. It gives our opportunity for our office staff to touch base with our drivers in real time, just make sure they're okay, make sure everyone around them is okay. In the same event, we do have a front-facing camera. Isn't all that popular yet, but it's also a safety tool, just as the exterior camera is. If our drivers are distracted, if our drivers are getting drowsy, sometimes it's a case where we got to protect them from themselves. And, it gives our dispatchers an opportunity, shoots them an email, shoots me a text in live time of drowsy driving incidents. Like I said, gives us that opportunity to be proactive versus reactive when it becomes most serious and people's lives are in danger.
So I'll add to Derek's comment about being proactive versus reactive. So in the world of customer integration and how we support our customers, technology is key as it relates to reporting. So we do a lot of things, through Power BI, Excel to the whole different Power, a lot of different reporting tools so that we can definitely bring and share information to our customers, where systems are talking between our distribution centers, our planning teams, multiple teams are able to communicate through a tool, so we're able to share information and service our customers faster, stronger, and better.
For me, it's about how do we incorporate autonomous robots, vehicles into the manufacturing environment, because we're getting pushed to do that due to the labor costs. I mean, we can't, with the way the labor cost is right now, we have to think about innovative ways that we can bring in these autonomous vehicles or units that we have. So how do you put that in a manufacturing environment, an environment that most of the people probably won't like because it's a threat to the jobs that they might have? But how do we incorporate that in a real streamlined way where it's efficient and it's beneficial? It's not just like a dog and pony show. It actually works, and it does work. So that's the thing that we're really getting pushed with, and that's across all the manufacturing areas. I mean, I've gone to a few plants where they have it pretty much locked in and they're able to do it, but you have to work with the labor too to do it. So it's not just that you're all autonomous, but how do you integrate those two together in order to be an efficient organization? So that's the biggest challenge we're having right now.
And so we're in the drone industry kind of having the opposite industry. I was first exposed to drones probably 20 years ago in the military, and there was a kid in Colorado flying the drone over our head in Afghanistan, right? So the technology has been there for a long time, and now we're at a point where the drones are pretty much flying themselves in most cases. But we're waiting for the regulation and these manufacturing facilities, these warehouses where having that part just in time could save you, thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. That oil rig where that boat fails and you now have millions of dollars in lost opportunity every hour. Getting a part there becomes very, very critical. The one thing that we're held up by is the FAA, and so recently, last May, Congress passed the FAA Reauthorization Act of 2024, which was the first time we've gotten a timeline in about 10 years from FAA or Congress on when the skies are going to open up, and it was September, but they missed their deadline. But it should be coming very soon, sometime within this year we're expecting. But once that happens, we're going to be able to do all of those things. And so I think we're right on the cusp of a new dawn where we're going to be able to start integrating drones especially into a lot of these new facilities and supply chains.
So for everybody here, right? Like whether it's automation or artificial intelligence, drives for sustainability, where do you see, say, in the next 5-10 years, things going or changing in your field, right? In your area of the supply chain at large?
I see more integration of technology. I see a lot of what you're seeing in the cars that we looked at behind you. Lane departure, collision control, stuff like that. Usually the trucks that we operate in are a couple of years behind, most OEM manufacturers in the technology they do. So if it works for them, we start to adopt it. We're going to see bigger batteries in the trucks. They are still pushing to get that full autonomous vehicle. Due to some constraints of, charging that battery and keeping it charged, we're not having that much success in the transportation industry yet. On a smaller scale, it is taking place, say, in ports. They have fully autonomous vehicles taking containers off of ships, containers to chassis, stuff like that. But in terms of on-the-road autonomy, and, I think the future is more in integration than takeover. So, and I think it's very much up to how you guys operate when you're out on the roads.
So I'll jump in with, it's going off of the last thing I mentioned with the FAA Reauthorization Act. What that's going to do is what opens up beyond visual line of sight, it's called. That's where the pilot no longer has to be within line of sight of the drone, which is currently the case pretty much across the U.S. right now. So we're going to be able to get deliveries to your house. You're going to be able to get just-in-time deliveries. Found out auto parts stores, the amount of couriers those people employ just to get the brakes for an '89 Honda. They don't always have them in stock, and so there's all kinds of these real niche type of, really, really operationally key supply chains for almost every business we're talking to, and looking at how we can implement drones into that is really exciting and a huge opportunity. But I think over the next 5 years, we're going to see a huge paradigm shift.
So PepsiCo is definitely key on being in the game, staying ahead of the game. So a couple of years back, we actually have electric trucks in California, so West Coast with Tesla. So those are some of our trucks that are delivering products. With our distribution centers across the world, definitely we are trying to do everything we can for automation. So as stated, we are in the game and ahead of the game. So anything we can do to just automate to make it possible for us to get our products to our customers faster, that's definitely something that we focused on. I think, AI is something right now that's really new, but I have a feeling that, as time go on, AI will be something that people will be talking about and bringing more into how they play in the business world.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned AI. So I just went through training for the first time about AI, and I was blown away. Everyone has different categories of it. What's going to be the challenge for, I think, our industry is how do we find a way to utilize AI? I mean, we don't really know what that means. Right now, we're trying to use it for basic training, because you can fill it up with all this data. But how we use it and in order for it to benefit us, I think is still undetermined. I think another thing that's really out there is the electrification of everything that we have going on. I see the beautiful cars in the back, and Rivian is our competitor. But those are nice looking cars. What is the government going to do in terms of driving if we're deciding to go electric? What are they going to do to support it? Right now, it's tough to have electric car. It can't really, if you're getting around the city, that's fine. But when you go on the road, it's an odyssey. An example, usually I drive back, I'm from Detroit. I drive back to Detroit, it's a 4-hour drive. In an electric car, it took me 6 hours because I had to stop 2 or 3 times. And then, in addition to that, stopping, I had to go to numerous stations that were down or broken or damaged. And at the time, Tesla, I have a Ford, of course, I couldn't charge at the Tesla station. And Tesla had us on lockdown. So that's the thing I think that the industry is going to electrification. And even when I talk about autonomous, those are electric also. So that's the big push right now that we're trying to get ahead of and try to stay in front of in order to reduce our costs overall. So it's a huge challenge, though.
So we have one of our questions that has come in online is kind of, is there a particular product or good or, part of the part that you work on that has struggled to like meet consumer demand? Or do you have like a story of a time where, the supply chain, maybe you helped bring it, where it needed to be, or a particular challenge that is presenting to us today?
So I want to 2020 when we got hit with the pandemic, right? So I used to tell people because I was working crazy hours. So similar to toilet paper, bleach being a demand, where our pancake mix, our syrup, our juice were in demand because people were home, right? They were homeschooling their kids. I mean, we were on lockdown, right? So that was unbelievable how we had to overcome that. So definitely it helped. It hurt or hindered everybody personally, and definitely that was a challenge for us. But we pulled through. We also sometimes we have recalls, withdrawals, but we also overcome them. But definitely, what stands out is the pandemic and just us trying to be able to provide to our consumers.
I still have nightmares about this one. We had a launch, the new Explorer, new Aviator, back in 2019, and I actually almost lost my job during that time, which because it was tough. It was tough. The car that came in was extremely difficult from an electrical standpoint, and from an MPNL standpoint, we did not have the manpower up, trained, and ready to go for the launch, and we suffered. We suffered big time. So, I mean, we did so much things. We did a couple of things where we actually brought people from other plants to be here for like 6 months to help us just be able to deliver parts. And we didn't have good data to support where our issues were. So you understand as a manager that part of what you need to do every time, you learn from those things. And you actually have to go back and do what I call a autopsy, to look at what happened, what went wrong, what actually could you have done better, and the lessons learned from that. Because I'm big on lessons learned. I've learned more from failure than I have ever from the success I've done, when I consider my little success. But that was the biggest opportunity for me, and being told by one of my directors that, hey, you are the problem. Your team wasn't ready. And there was some truth to it. There was some blaming that goes with any launch if anybody's been a part of a launch. Somebody's going to get blamed for a launch, and launches don't usually go well because we don't invest the time or the talent to participate in the launch. It's usually a bunch of people thrown together, no cohesiveness. But that was my biggest opportunity, and I learned so much for it, and it's one of the things that probably helped me out today. So.
Yeah, and the other angle too, I know like for Valkyrie and Lily, you don't do as much with the actual materials. You're more about getting them where they're going. Are there any pinch points for you all that come across or happen?
Yeah, so we're actually running into a big challenge right now, and while COVID definitely was a huge challenge for us, we're finding that the current administration and some of the uncertainty has posed a lot of challenges, especially because a lot of the drone industry in particular has been subsidized in China, which is why it's very difficult for U.S. companies to compete. And it's been a challenging 10 years. And so when you look at, Chinese material and labor costs, and then you look at government subsidies, there's no shot that any other country is able to compete. But now we're finding that, or not we, but the Department of Justice is finding all kinds of incongruities with some of their stuff, and a lot of them are getting put on sanctioned lists. And so, for instance, a company, T-Motor, who provided the motors for pretty much the whole industry, was just put on a sanction list, right? And so having to find new motors for every one of your platforms is a huge challenge. And there's nobody in the United States that's making them, with the exception of maybe the president's son now. So those are starting to open some unique challenges for us.
For Lily, when I hear what we're talking about, my mind still goes to that safety, right? So we all kind of agree that we learn a lot more from losses than wins. You know, a loss in the safety realm is an accident. It's injuries. So, you know, and there's just inherent motivation there is what can we do to prevent those? And, you know, for us right now, it's a camera. It's telling us what our drivers are doing. It's collision controls, it's lane departures, it's all those things. And, you know, like I said, the motivation's there because when we lose, you know, somebody gets hurt.
Cool. So I have one more kind of future question, and then we're going to switch gears kind of to talk about workforce and, you know, skills, because I see there's lots of questions coming in from you all about that. But before we move into there's a really cool question that came in, which is if you could magically change something in supply chain, in logistics, what would you, if you could, like, you know, wave a wand and make it happen, what would you want to change?
So I'm going to start off with this one. So KPIs, which are key performance indicators. So every team has KPIs, right? And we work cross-functionally together. However, our KPIs are not the same. So there's a difference. And so when you're playing in that arena and someone's goal is 95% on something and your goal is 95% on something else, that can be challenging at times. So if I could change one thing, is for KPIs to match for cross-functional teams.
I'll go. All right. If I can change one thing, a couple of things, but the thing I would focus on is just good alignment on goals and objectives. Kind of like you talking about KPIs. It's important to understand what your objectives are when you start your year. And for a lot of times, I mean, in the past, we wouldn't get ours until almost March, April, because it's just the way it worked. So that's one of the things I would really like to have very clear objectives in January with a really solid, robust scorecard where you can keep tab of where you're at and determine how you're progressing. And I think that's really important. If I can wave a wand, that would be the thing I would do.
So I'm going to go back to regulations. I don't necessarily know that I would get rid of them altogether because I don't know that we want people just flying drones everywhere in this country. That could be dangerous. But we are drastically behind some of the other countries, in particular China. China's 6-7 years ahead of us on drones. If we ever had to go into a combat situation with a near peer like China, I think we would have a very, very difficult time, particularly on the robotics and automated warfare types of situations. And a lot of that is, again, going back to we haven't really provided the environment in this country or Europe or Canada, for that matter, to really foster homegrown type of industries in a lot of these. And we're seeing a handful of players emerge, but we're not seeing the same type of robustness across the entire industry as we're seeing in China, for instance. And so creating a more nurturing environment for some of this technological innovation, really since the interest rates started rising after COVID, it's been very challenging for almost all hardware and OEM type of businesses. And so that would really be where most of my focus would be.
As for me, what would I change? Quite a bit, but to be brief, I understand that the only constant is change. I've been doing this for about 20 years. Logistics today is very, very different than it was when I started. It's just about every 18 months we get a big, massive change. Big changes in regulations, big changes in our industry, how our governing bodies operate. I wouldn't do anything to change it. Like I said, everybody's goal is that everybody gets home safe and, delivers some freight along the way. But, just understand that we are in a rapidly evolving industry.
So for folks who want to, say, get into your particular area of supply chain, whether that's at, your level or even just in your organization, what would you say some key skills are that are needed to be successful, right, and potentially make it a career?
So definitely those that are at our community colleges, stay and get your certificates, get your degree. Go on and get your 4-year degree if you can. So definitely any type of education is key. Definitely have the ability to present yourself. So I feel like in any situation, you need to be able to sell yourself and represent and demonstrate the skills that you have. One of the things, and I can look around the room that I've had conversations with, City College of Chicago, definitely being a data is very important. So make sure it's okay if you can go into Excel and pull data, but you also want to be able to tell a story with data, right? You don't want to just present it. You want to be able to tell the story, and you want to also be able to anticipate the next question. So that would be my recommendation as to be successful at whatever you do, whether it is at PepsiCo, if you're at one of our warehouses, or if you're sitting at a desk in one of our corporate office. I think those are key for you.
Kind of similar, but I really do think you have to be curious about the business that you're in, and also you have to be data driven and understand how to interpret data. It's easy to crunch data, but do you understand what the data is telling you? What is it? Where is it telling you to go? Where can it help you find solve problems that you're having? If you're not using it that way, then it's really useless. So I would make sure that if you're in the business or you want to be in the business, you need to be very curious, understand how to utilize data, because a lot of folks don't know how to utilize data, and be confident about what you know, and unafraid to take on challenges. And when you start in this business, you have to learn that sometimes you got to take tough jobs. All it's going to do is help you, and you learn from it. So I think that's what you need to do, to get in this business.
Patience. Have patience. Understand that the work is going to be the only reward you have for a little bit, and that's just how it's going to be, And what we do when you deliver loads, that's great. That's exactly what's supposed to happen. So understand that the work is the reward sometimes. Have patience.
So with drones, there's a lot of opportunity growing right now. People need to sell those drones. People need to repair those drones. People need to manufacture those drones, code those drones, design them. So there's a lot of opportunity across all kinds of skill sets. But I would recommend anybody that wants to get involved in the industry goes and gets their Part 107 license. It's your standard drone license. A lot of our new hires can get it in a week if they take the time and study. Very easy, but at least understanding how the systems work and flying them, you can get some very cost-effective platforms these days. But understanding just the basic aviation principles, it will help no matter what you're doing, right? You'll be able to speak to customers as, is this a challenge we can solve with a drone? Is a drone the best tool for the job? Oftentimes, we get a little excited in the industry and we try and solve every problem with drones, and that's not always the best answer either. So those that are looking to get into it, I would say study that, but any coding, technological skills you have, technical skills you have, are going to be all very critical no matter where you're going in it, because it's increasing complexity week by week, month by month in this industry. It's not getting simpler. So being able to understand layers deeper into how the systems work is only going to help anybody looking to succeed in this.
Thank you all. There's also a couple of questions coming in about, you mentioned a particular certificate for drones. Are there any other kind of certificates or particular, languages for coding that are like, this is what you need? Also for everybody else on the panel, right? Are there like a certificate or something that is like, if you get this, it'll look great on a resume?
So we love Python and C++. Those are really what a lot of the interfaces for robotics are running off of these days. ROS and ROS 2 are becoming increasingly popular as the robotic systems are getting more complex. But again, our Part 107 is pretty much what I would recommend universally across any position, from engineer to pilot to marketing.
besides your CDL. So you're definitely going to need that. I would say seek out safety, right? So anything that we have in our industry is readily available. Anybody can go and pick up a federal motor carrier book. There's plenty of institutions out there that hold courses and classes in addition to what you guys are learning here for safety. As much as you can learn about the governing bodies can only assist you.
Cool. Anything, I don't want to skip.
No, I'm good. I mean, for us, I mean, it's, associate, bachelor's. I mean, if you know Excel, PowerPoint, all those kind of office tools, I mean, I think that's pretty good for us in terms
Yeah.
of that. Yeah.
I'd like to just throw one thing on there for the coding. You don't have to have a degree in coding to be a good coder. Some of the best coders I've seen are the ones that taught themselves off of YouTube videos and online tutorials. So in drones in particular, it tends to be more what you're capable of rather than your credentials or certificates, so to speak. So I just want to make sure I throw that out there, that being a little bit of creative in how you get ingenuitive in this is oftentimes seen as a plus.
And then kind of combining our talking about the future and talking about workforce, right? We know that things like automation, robotics, even drones, right, are going to change what it looks like to work in the supply chain field. From your all's perspective, what might that look like, and what might change or stay the same?
If I could jump in here, I get asked this one a lot, and people say, when are drones replacing trucks? They'll never replace trucks. We saw during COVID, we have a very, very fragile last mile, right? Any increased demand puts a lot of strain on it, and we don't really have the resources to keep that up long term. I mean, we saw the challenges that came with that, and so adding in drones is really almost a pressure release valve because you're adding in a new layer without disrupting the old one. So I think that we're not going to necessarily change a lot of things. We're going to be looking at drones and robotics to be an additional layer and another tool in the toolbox for specific use cases. But again, it's not a hammer and every problem's not a nail. And so I don't think that drones are going to replace anything. I think they're just going to be an ancillary and a addition to.
Any other thoughts from our panelists? That's totally fine. So the other question we have that I think is coming in is, do you operate in a just-in-time environment? And for those of us who are less immersed in this logistics field, could someone please define what a just-in-time environment is for those of us who are less immersed in it? And if so, what kind of defines just-in-time and what's limiting you in that respect?
Yeah, I mean, we're primary just-in-time for just about all our part deliveries, except for the ones probably being Mexico and the ones that we send to warehouses. Just-in-time is a material that we get, that we use it just before we need to put it on a vehicle. I mean, we get it delivered 3-4 hours sometimes before it gets on delivered. So that's the business that we're in. And in addition to that, we do have other just-in-time things that we do. We call IOVS, inline vehicle sequencing, building the parts the way the car comes down the line with the paint color on it already. It reduces point of fit space. So everything that we do is just-in-time. So it's a lot of pressure utilization on trucks and things like that. That's why I'm thinking about drones. How could I use drones in terms of repair parts, like you talked about? We have a place in Elgin that we run out of boats. It will be a weight restriction, but those are kind of things I would look at as another way of getting around the city, driving through the traffic in the city of Chicago. So those are things that we would look at.
So not necessarily just in time. I mean, so we operate on more of a scheduled delivery cadence, but we obviously want to get groceries to the shelves before you guys get to the stores, right? So, errors in that hinder our customer. So the way they explained it to me, and I always use that explain, is, say everybody's is going to grab a certain product, green onions on Sunday morning, but my truck was late and green onions aren't there, so she went to another grocery store. She's probably never going to walk back into Whole Foods again because they didn't have what she expected. So, I deal with that 96 times per every 24-hour period.
And so, yeah, we're on the opposite side where we're trying to shorten that gap and close those tolerances on just in time, right? So you don't have to wait a full day or even, half a day to have that courier drop everything and go do that. If you can get that one piece that's missing or that one part on the drone that can go fly straight as the crow flies, it's going to get there and it's going to be more cost effective. A lot of the studies that have been done by McKinsey and ARK Invest and Amazon are all coming to the same conclusion of it's about 22 times cheaper to provide that type of service with drones at scale compared to ground-based delivery. And so I think that there's going to be huge opportunities in this just there.
So my world is similar to Derek, where we're trying to make sure the product is available when the consumer comes. So with our customers, we have RAD, so that's requested arrival date. So we're trying to execute and make sure we have a product available at our warehouses to ship to meet our customer requested delivery date. We also get scorecard on-time delivery. We're making sure that we're getting there on time so that the end result is for the product to be on the shelf. So we don't have a consumer coming into a store saying it's not available and then go to our competitor.
Makes a lot of sense. So kind of to wrap up some of our workforce questions, we have a couple that are about kind of specific positions. One is, are there any early positions that tend to be good in terms of getting those basic skills to then move up in an organization? Or conversely, are there any industries not in supply chain that you think would transition well into supply chain?
Take a third shift position. You see more unpack in the third shift than you do in the first and second shift. Any inefficiency of any of the two previous shifts, you see. It all comes out on third shift. I started at my current operation on third shift for that exact reason. Reverse engineer operations, when things are going good, third shift can be boring, sure. But when they're not, you're working there, you don't want to wake people up. You're dealing with issues in real time. You're putting a little bit more burden on yourself than you would when there's, your boss and everybody else around you. So seek out those third shift positions. Seek out what someone else doesn't want, and you will learn more than they did.
I would say take a role that you're passionate about. I've seen far too often you have people come in and they're doing what they think is the right job or what somebody expects of them. But if you like to tinker and you like to build things and that's what you do in your free time, do that for a job, right? If you like to plan things and you're a very organized person, you'd be great at figuring out the scheduling and the AI stuff that goes into all of the models that we're looking at for where the drones are going to go and what picks up what and all the things involved in that. And so, because again, as everybody here has reiterated, this is a very brutal, thankless industry, and you're not going to always really have anything other than that to fall back on a lot of the times, and you're going to get tested on that often. And so if it's not something that you really love doing, whether it is the marketing for the company or building the products or R&D or whatever it may be, you're not really going to put it in, whether that's lasting a career in this or rising to the top 10, 20% within your company, your field, etc.
I want to touch on the piece on how to grow within a company. I think, definitely, if everyone is in school now, I think about someone who went to school even 5 years ago, there's new things being taught. So definitely go into an organization and absorb and learn. And then from there, this is something we do say at PepsiCo, voice your opinion fearlessly. So if it's something that you see that can be done better, say it, right? You never know that initiative may be taken on. So I definitely believe in people voicing their opinion and speaking fearlessly, because you definitely can make a difference, and that will help you propel and grow your career.
Yeah, there's nothing to add. We don't have to add. Let me see here. It looks like we have kind of one more question, and then we maybe throw it out to the whole room, throw it over to Joachim to do some more Q&A. But for us right now, we're in, some of you have already mentioned, we're in a time of change and flux, both with technology and with what's happening in politics, right? There's lots of changes happening. And there are a couple of questions here that are about how does the kind of international world, right, whether that be tariffs, whether that be supply chains coming from different countries, how does that impact your all's roles in the supply chain, or not?
It definitely impacts it. We started off, example about tariffs. So they took the whole company through a spin of trying to plan and work around it, try to get as much product across the border before the tariffs hit. So it's huge, and we're worried. Everyone's worried about it. You know, you put tariffs in place, what it's going to do to car sales. I mean, we're going back and forth. So it's huge. But like a couple of people said, you have to be dynamic. I mean, you have to continue to plan and work on your plan. But it's really, we can't control that. What we can control is how we react to it. So that's really the focus that, you know, you have to have. And yeah, you can lose a lot of sleep over it, but at the end of the day, what are you going to do when you find out when it comes down, whatever the new change is, how are you going to react to it in order for you to keep making the money and selling cars that you're supposed to do? That's all it comes down to. So yeah, it's a stressor, but at the same time, it's just like any other challenge that you might have.
I'm going to jump in on that one as well. There will still be trucks on the road, I promise you. The sun will come up tomorrow and people will still need deliveries. You know, and you know, when we talk about, you know, planes and trains, they don't go to stores, trucks do. We still need them.
Yeah. Awesome. So I think we're getting ready to transition over to our Q&A with the, you know, everybody here. I will still be raising my hand to add a question in from online here and there. So if you're more comfortable submitting a question online, feel free. We are going to do kind of the pass the mic up front so that we can go into the audience and get questions. But does anybody have a question to get us started in the room?
And please tell us your name and where you're from. And if you go to school here, you can say Olive Harvey.
If you all need a moment to think, that's fine. I'll start us off with a question from online, but get thinking, because after this question, we're coming with the microphone. So let me pull one. This is the one of the top ones that got liked here, which is for folks who are educators, whether that's at the college level or at the high school level. Is there anything that folks should be teaching people to help them, say, break into the industry or get started?
So I touched on it earlier. Excel is very important. So, you know, just building your analytical skills is very important because that's just, you've heard us mention that. So anything you can do to enhance that, that's helpful. Any courses that you can take, I think that's very helpful because data, I mean, nowadays there's no way you can get around data, and definitely in a corporate setting or any type of work environment. So I lead intern experience every summer, and that is one of the things that when my interns, what can I do to prepare? And I'm like, get your Excel skills up and know how to analyze data and tell a story.
Stick with it. So like what I say when I mean like that, yeah, develop your soft skills 100%, develop your hard skills, excel, be able to do all that stuff. Understand that, like we've all talked about, we're in a rapidly evolving industry, but the human aspect is not going anywhere. If trucks tomorrow, when fully autonomous, there's 5-10 years of co-piloting. You know, there's going to be opportunities in that stuff. They're not just going to take a unmanned truck and throw it down the road. They're going to need someone holding a CDL to take the wheel in worst case scenarios. You know, so start to see what, you know, different splinters off the way this industry could go. But I promise you, the human aspect is going nowhere.
How about that? Fire? All right. So I would say having partnerships with industry and really engaging with those. We're seeing that there's a handful of people that when they call me and say I've got somebody or I've got a student, I know I'm hiring that person if they're coming off of that recommendation, right? And so it opens the opportunity for sponsored research with the college and more opportunities to do these really exciting projects that more exciting projects, but also it gives the students interactions for internships, for projects, for different types of co-ops with the companies themselves, right? And so, you see all these great manufacturers here. I would say the more that each professor, each educator has those individually, the better.
So I knew Stacy would have a question. I knew that.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming. My name is Stacy Delaney Roney. I work for the YWCA organization, and we focus on the transportation, distribution, and logistics sector via the Chicago Cook Workforce Partnership. And my question to you is, if there were any mission-critical positions that you struggle to fill right now, what are they, and how can we help you fill them?
Great question.
We have revolving positions that are challenges from time to time. Grayson right there would love to talk to you about that, though. Grayson right there.
When you say mission critical, I guess what we're looking for, and it's kind of why we're trying to develop a relationship with Olivet Harvey, is we're looking to get people on the beginning of their career to kind of set them up to understand what our purpose is and what we do for our business, and see if it's a match, right? Because sometimes it might not be a match, but at least they can come in a structured environment. We give them the tools that they need in order to do that, and then develop a relationship. So that's what I'm looking to do. I need process coaches who are frontline supervisors. We go through a lot of those, unfortunately. Turnover, in our business is, 9-10%. But that's what we're looking for. And I look at it from a mission critical standpoint is I want you to get in the business. I want you to stay in the business. And if I come in and give you a good structure and I give you, I'm giving you mentoring, I'm giving you all that, because that's what we plan on doing. That's what we want to do. But that's what we're looking at. I'm looking to grow because I have an older workforce right now. And a lot of people are retiring, me too. The guy sitting next to you probably be trying to take my job in a few years. But so yeah, that's what we're looking at. When you say mission critical, I just want to make sure it's just really just reloading your bench and developing people on the bench so they can be in leadership roles is what we're looking to do. And you don't have to sell me because I'm already being sold by the team. I'm good. I'm good. We're good. Thank you, though.
Hi, I'm Reggie Greenwood from Governor State University. So a quick plug, on April the 25th, we're going to have another program about smart logistics, and Ryan is going to be flying those drones, and you can get delivery of food there. So I'm sure you'll hear about that. But also I want to ask the question, Chicago has made a big investment in quantum computing. There's been this huge project not too far from here that IBM and this other company is developing a big quantum system. I really don't really understand quantum computing, but does anyone up there think that's an important idea, an important part of the future of the Illinois economy? Can we become the quantum valley of the country?
I don't even know anything about. I was about to Google it, but I didn't want to be rude.
So I think Illinois is really kind of being a central point for this because of all of our nuclear power. I think that's why they're choosing this, because it's extremely power intensive, but it very much runs parallel but not necessarily intersecting with our kind of legacy of being a logistics hub. I think there could be better uses, right? Michigan, for a great example, is really doing a lot of efforts with autonomous vehicles and drones and making a lot of pushes to bring companies there. And we're not seeing necessarily the same out of Chicago, which is a shame that we're putting it more towards quantum. I saw a study came out recently. They had to spend $5 million to find a use case for it, right? Because it's truly one of those technologies that you really can't have out there, right? It's government control because it kind of breaks everything if it works, right? And so I think the new Google chip is very interesting because it's really kind of the first time we're seeing this individualized quantum application. And I think that we probably don't even know 0.1% of what that's going to actually do. But I think that we're missing a huge piece on a lot of the drones and autonomous vehicles and the things that we should be testing here that should complement the quantum when it rolls together into a commercial technology.
We have another question that came in online, and then it looks like we've got a question over there. So one of the questions that came in online is, what is the biggest difference between working for a major company versus, say, working for a startup or smaller company?
At a startup, you never have enough time, money, or resources. There's never enough hours in a day. You can't move fast enough. So if you work well under that environment, startups are great. There's some people that are really wired that way, but other people really like to have a little bit of structure and, things to kind of fall back on when things get tough, and startups don't always have that. So it's the Wild West a lot of times, and you got to be ready for it.
And from the other perspective, what is it like to be at a more established company?
Demanding, so some of the points that you're getting from a startup, you're also getting with a major corporation, right? So definitely you see where, someone may be doing a couple different roles at one time, different tasks, multitasking, that's just the answer. But I think demanding, nowadays, no matter where you are, is very, very demanding. And you just got to, be on your A game all the time.
I mean, I think the biggest thing too is the availability of resources when you're with a larger company. I mean, you can reach out and touch anyone in a company if you know them from a meeting or whatever, just to get some information. And I think like I think it's Ryan said, I think you have to take a different type of person to be in a startup, because a startup requires you to be almost like an entrepreneur. You're working all the time. I mean, it's very competitive, and some people don't work well in that. So, I think that's the biggest deal in terms of the between the two. I think it's the resources and available resources.
Culture, right? So for-hire carriers make up the bulk of carriers in the industry, right? You said it perfectly. It's the Wild West, right? They're too busy finding work to find out who they are, right? They'll figure that out tomorrow once the load's delivered, and then they're gonna find another load after that. And when you start having the opportunity for scale and you start building operations to suit, and you're in the dedicated logistics, you know who you are, you know what your culture is, and it's easy to kind of praise that on to everybody else. Make sure, get that culture to be contagious. When you're, when you're a small company or when you're just starting out, those questions aren't even on your radar yet. Like, you got bills to pay.
My name is Takir Israr. I'm from Eastern Illinois University, part of ASL with Reggie. My question is that I'm sure within the companies you guys have moved over to automation of processes. Could you guys talk about some challenges or some bottlenecks that you guys might have faced while moving towards the automation of those processes, and how did you guys, overcame those challenges?
I got the mic, so I can jump in on that one real quick. Understanding, right? How about accountability? So drivers are doing much more on their end than what we can do for them from the dispatch desk, right? So electronic logs. How do I get someone to understand that any infraction in their logs is going to affect all the 2,000 people that work for this company, right? So it's understanding that level of importance. Like, if you want to feel like a cog in the machine, this is your opportunity. We literally need you to win. We need you to understand how to fill your logs, certify them when necessary, stay out of violation, and be ready in the case that you might get pulled over and an officer who's not going to be as friendly with you as I am. He's going to want all this information and quick.
Not a ton of automation happening for these folks here. I mean,
Not in terms of processes, no.
Right.
Not in terms of processes. I mean, a lot of our processes are just going for, process enhancement, process verification, things like that, which is tough when you are dealing with people who are not used to it. So that's a challenge, but not in terms of automation. I haven't faced a lot of that.
What I've found is it's very challenging when the champion of that automation leaves. And so when the person that understands that piece of the pie very well moves on, whatever, and especially if it's a sudden type of thing, it becomes very challenging and sometimes can take months to unwind and fully understand. And so documentation is what we've been using to really get around that transfer of knowledge and that continuity. But we've run into it a handful of times where somebody implements a system and it's, hey, this is the new greatest thing, and then they, for whatever reason, aren't there, and now we're stuck with a system nobody understands.
So we're currently working where we're having one system that will work for like Frito, for our beverages, for our foods, right? So we have dedicated teams, right? We have project teams that are responsible for coming up with the SOPs, right? They're doing the testing. They also ask SMEs, which are subject matter experts, for their opinion. So if we're doing big projects, we definitely have teams to dedicate and focus solely on making sure things are right. We do a lot of testing and vetting so that if there are any hiccups, we definitely catch those before we take them into production.
I have a question, actually, and this is specifically for Ryan, because this innovative technology is extremely impressive, but in my mind, I'm saying in about 10 or 15 years, ideally for you, there would be hundreds of drones that's flying all around, delivering all sorts of different packages and products. How would that be regulated? And do you foresee like a more local body to regulate some of those, drone activity?
No, and that's a great question. It's actually going back to probably the 60s as far as Supreme Court cases and how this stuff is all regulated. The FAA has jurisdiction over pretty much everything from the air rights you have above your home all the way to the space, right? It's very challenging if you have cities that can create patchworks of imagine if every helicopter flying from city to city had to call and find different rules, right? And so they had to smooth that out with the FAA. what they've done is, and part of the reason why we're seeing it take so long with the FAA is they're trying to make sure it's very safe. But fortunately, we haven't had a single fatality from a drone in this country yet, right? And so you're seeing things like remote ID was a big implementation the other year, where now every drone that's flying has to transpond its position and direction and all those things to the FAA. And to that point, it's tracking all of this, right? It's when you have thousands and, truly tens of thousands at a time over a given square area. How do you make sure not only that you're tracking all of them, there's no bad actors, and you do have some process in place to prevent damage to people on the ground or anything like that. So it's a huge challenge that the FAA is sorting through, and they're making a lot of progress, but unfortunately it's not quite quick enough for some of the other people we're competing against.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
We
in the
definitely have
room?
time for 2 to 3 more questions, so thank you.
This for anyone on the panel. So most of our students have frontline experience. So just what suggestions would you guys say for the students to take to make that transition from a frontline employee to a corporate employee?
So to transition to a corporate position, a 4-year degree is required. So if it's any way, right now they're getting their associates. If they can continue on another 2 years or so to get that bachelor's degree, I think that's what's helpful. Definitely at PepsiCo, a bachelor's degree in the corporate setting is necessary.
It's pretty much the same with Ford. I mean, operations don't require you to have a college degree. But if you are going to go on the corporate side, they would want you to at least have an associate or a bachelor's degree.
Just going to echo exactly what was said to the left. Hone your soft skills, hone your hard skills, market yourself, know where your strengths and weaknesses are, be upfront about your opportunities. When you respect the work you do, others will too.
Well, I have another question. Apprenticeships and internships are quite the buzzword right now in workforce, but also I would imagine in my mind that supply chain could benefit a great deal from apprenticeships or internships. Are those models that's being adopted right now within your companies, and is there room for growth and incorporation of maybe a YWCA or at Olive Harvey College, for example?
I think there's definitely a role for it. I've changed my thoughts about, I think college is important, don't get me wrong, but I think there's other avenues that you can go through to get that. So, and I think apprenticeships are those types of avenues. The thing about it is, how do you change corporate America way of looking at that? Because we're still hung up on, and I say this, 4-year degree. I'm be honest with you. When I was in Kansas City, it's really when I had to first time take my stuff away from just this, you got to have a 4-year degree, because I wasn't getting good talent. And then I was running across some people who didn't have 4-year degrees that were awesome. So it all depends. But that's what it's going to take. Corporate America still had these rules around these jobs, and even the corporate jobs, I don't think you necessarily need to have a 4-year degree. It doesn't say anything. It said you went through a process and you completed it, which is a lot to say. However, I don't think it equates success in jobs. I don't. Right.
Thank you. Any other questions before we wrap this up? Any other last questions? We have time for at least one more question. I know you got something burning in your mind right now. I know it's singeing deep in your brain, but you can just ask it. Anybody else? Last minute questions. All right, going once, going twice, and I knew Stacy gonna give me one. I knew it.
I'm sorry. This is for the transportation company. We are challenged as workforce professionals right now because of the limitations put on new drivers, people just obtaining their CDL. Do you see anything changing? And I know a lot has to do with insurance coverage is there a solution to that? Because we've got all these people on our hands that can't get a job because they don't have the experience. What would you recommend?
I recommend going with the mega carriers. There's JB Hunt, Schneider, Werner's out there. I mean, is it your favorite job in your career? I 100% guarantee it will not be. But it's going to give you the experience you need that allows a company like myself to look at you. You know, really, it's governed by insurance companies. And that's really what's driving a lot of those decision makings. Some companies are getting into trainee programs and putting trainers with them and stuff like that. That too is an investment. But that's exactly what the mega carriers are doing anyway, and that's why they're able to take people right out of school. I always say, give it a year. Go with a Schneider, go with a JB Hunt for a year. You're going to get experience. You're going to get the hardest experience you'll get in the industry, but it prepares you for success when you get off the road and you want to go to a more regional or even local position.
All right. Guys, please give it up for our panel for giving us some wonderful insights. Just really a great conversation and a great discussion, and we really appreciate it. And there's really innovative ideas and opportunities as well that we've seen. Before we go, I see the yawns. We're almost out of here. Okay, that food was good. It's probably sitting on you a little bit. That was a joke. I do want to bring up one of our supply chain instructors because this also was a launch to the supply chain curriculum that is going to be starting at Olive Harvey College. Actually, our curriculum specialist was just back there. He just asked a question. I think he went, oh, he's behind me. It's fantastic. So we're going to have them kind of speak a little bit about the supply chain curriculum. And then there is also C2ST is passing out a survey right now. Please complete that survey so we can know what we did right, what we did not so right. All right. Thank you.
Okay, so very quickly, like Joachim said, we have flyers in the front for our program coming up. So these are our certification programs, include Six Sigma. You'll get your yellow, green, and black belt within a 12-week period. These classes take place on Saturday. We also will have our freight brokers classes as well. The first segment through Olive Harvey, and it's first come, first serve as far as like the amount of people that we allow, and it's grant funded. So if you're interested, please sign up as soon as possible. From that point, we'll have another more strict freight brokerage program based on who achieves the certification in the first round, and you continue on. Then we have other basically certifications coming up through ASCM and different programs that we have Segway coming this summer and this fall. So.
Hey, good evening, guys. I'm Mr. Dave. I'm the drone instructor here at Olive Harvey. Just to piggyback off of what Mr. Ryan had said earlier, you find something that you love to do and it doesn't become work anymore. We started out here teaching young kids from pre to 4th grade to 5th to all the way to high school, and now we have implemented an adult program to help people get their FAA license recreationally first, and then we're trying to implement a more 107 course curriculum for guys who don't have an understanding of pilot work. So we're definitely making a lot of strides, a lot of big things coming you guys' way, and a lot of opportunities and openings. It's called the Part 107, sir. It's a blue license. It looks just like this. It's very obtainable. If you like flying, I make the courses and the curriculums really dope for everybody. So give yourselves a chance, give yourself some opportunities, and take a risk. It's high reward. Can't lose it.
All right, so he's going to be here for another few minutes as well if you want to inquire about that, as well as Deron is going to be stationed outside at our supply chain table as well if you want to ask a few questions about that. And again, I want to please give it up for our panelists one more time. While you're giving up for our panelists, give it up for our amazing moderator, Kylie Kozlik. And then give it up for yourselves before you get out of here. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Please have a safe ride home. Thank you.